Hi, thanks for tuning in today. I want to show you how to do a puzzle ring. Um, they usually come in even numbers of bands, from maybe 4, 6, or 8, or even more. The first one I saw came from a friend of mine whose parents worked for Aramco in Saudi Arabia. They would get these things in solid gold and bring them back to the States. You can also find them more often in sterling silver, which is what I have right now. Usually they're small, 4 bands or maybe 6. This one is an 8 band, and you can get more than that. So what it is a ring that's made out of different bands, in case you're not familiar with it. They're all connected together, and when it falls apart, it's very difficult to put back together. The legend or myth that goes with them, I don't know if it's true or not, was that it was for, say, like a harem wife or a wife in general. If she took it off and it fell apart, the husband would know that something had been happening, which it just sounds like a good story to me. I don't know how true it is, but anyway, this one, when I first got it, somebody called me. They knew that little jewelry shop. They knew that I could do them, and somebody had taken it apart. They couldn't get it back together. Personally, I'd been looking for one that would fit for a long time. They're usually too small, and when I put this one together, it fit perfectly, so I bought it immediately, which is kind of a cool little backstory for this ring. Anyway, let's get down to it. When you take it apart, it falls apart very easily and looks like a jumble of rings. It's just a mess. So there's a few key steps. The first one is you need to find the 2 rings that hold the entire mess together. So these actually are the 2 rings. When you hang, if you hang by one of the rings that's not the 2 rings, you'll see like this one comes off by itself and it has a bunch of buddies that hang out down here. They're kind of similar, but these 2 are isolated. Same thing if you grab another one, here's 2, but there's always 2 that tend to be on their own. So those are the ones that are kind of the foundation for putting the ring together. The other thing you have to decide or find out is are these in the right position next to each other? I know this ring really well, and I know that they end up together like this, with this little cross the way it is. However, you could end up with them like this, and if they don't go together real well, see how it seems to be like overlapping the wrong way? Then you probably need to take one of the rings and go all the way around, let it drop, and come back around this way, and then you can try and get them to line up together. One may go on top, meaning if you see this part on the top, or it may need to slide underneath. You'll just have to try it. You get little clues from the way that the ring is put together. And actually, I believe, it looks like yeah, I got it. So now, there's a bunch of rings down here. Okay, if you're doing a 4 ring, then you would only have 2 hanging. That actually can make it a little bit harder to identify the 2 rings that you need to keep as your foundation ring or bands. Usually when it's put together, there's almost like a greater than symbol made out of these rings, the bands at the top where the design is, and you'll have some pointing this way and some pointing that way. So before you get to the point where you can put all the rings together, you need to look at the other rings and see which way they're pointing. You can see some of these are pointing very obviously, like this one here Let me get it. This one here is pointing this way. Can you see it? This way. Whereas, let's get another one. This one, well, once you loop it around, it's pointing that way too. This one is pointing the other way. This one is kind of pointing that way, that little arrow right here. So the biggest ones, the biggest pointy ones are really going to be on the outside, on each side, because they'll be one of the first ones that you put together. So what you have to do, and I know this is really hard to see in this video, is you have to get the rings in a way that they kind of nest in the direction that they're going to end up pointing. And I'll show you what I mean by that in just 1 second once I get these rings. Okay, so I have all the bands together the way that they're going to be. And if you look, you can see there's 3 on this side. And this is, like I said, this is an 8-band ring. So I've got 2 bands that are the foundation, and I have 3 that go one direction and 3 that go the other. That gives me a total of 8 bands. If you've got a 4-band, then you'll have 1 and 1 and the 2 foundation. Or if you've got, say, a 6-band, you'll have 2 on each side that point, 2 point this way, 2 point that way, and the 2 foundation bands. It all depends on the ring you have. If you have 10, then just keep adding until you figure that out. It'd be 4, 4, and 2. So if you see, I've got the 2 rings, or the bands pointing the directions that they're going to be when it's finished. Now, the tricky part is these 2 rings, when they come together, let me show you. So you'll have this hanging the correct way. And the ring, bear with me while I get this in position so you can see it. When you have the 2 foundation rings together correctly, you'll have a hole. Here's one side, and here's the hole on the other side, if you can see that. Maybe I'll reshoot this later with the better camera, but for now, I'm going to do it the video this way. Here's a hole, and here's a hole. Now the trick is, you have to have all of these rings hanging through those holes so that you can start working them into their home spot where they'll end up. And the way you do that is, you hang this. And I'm hanging these bands. They're all pointing the directions that they need to be pointing, okay? And once you do that, you can take your 2 rings, the foundation bands, and do a half twist and see if you can do the half twist and get them inside those holes. You can kind of see it there, even with this camera in the focus. But maybe this part of the ring doesn't line up real good, okay? And one key thing to know when you're doing these rings, you will never have to force or tweak or get any pressure on this to make it go together. If you're bending it at all, you're doing it incorrectly. So if they don't fit together correctly, turn the rings back and then go 180 degrees the other direction. This one, see, it's not going together. It's just not going to work. So now what I do is I drop one ring. Boom. I drop that one. And I can't remember which way I came, so I may have to do it again. And you go all the way around. Lift it up. And do the same thing again. You're going to try and turn the ring to where you've got all the bands in. And if you see, I've got them inside those holes, but there's a flat spot up here, and I know that flat spot is where the top of the other band rests. So let me see if I can go, see what I'm doing here? I'm going to go around front. See this? You're looking at this part of this ring. Watch it. I'm going to go from this side of the ring. I'm behind the ring from your perspective, and I'm going to pull it to the side, and I'm going to push it forward toward you, and then I'm going to put them together. And if you look, you'll see that everything here fits together real nicely. And in the back of the ring, everything lines up and it just feels right. You can tell that. Now, we're about halfway through, and I appreciate you staying with me so long. And I'm sorry I'm not looking at the camera enough and saying hey to you, but I got to see what I'm doing, because this isn't the easiest thing to do. And if you learn how to do this, once you learn one, you pretty much know how to do all of them you're going to find. So what you have to do now is figure out which side to start from. And this may take you getting to know your ring. I know that I want to start with the first ring that's going to end up here. So you need to start on the outside with the biggest point that's going the other way, that's going this way. Because I'm trying to get this ring here. Let's see if it makes any sense. So what I have to do is you have to pull around and rotate the ring. You want all of the points hanging down until you're ready to use them. And by the points, I mean those little greater than things. You know. And you turn the ring around until the point is inside of that little trap that you made with the two foundation bands. And then when you do that, you can rotate it up and place it next to the other foundation bands. Foundation band is just something I just made up just right now for this video. Seemed to make sense. Now I go to the other side, because now I've got 3 on this side but 2 on that side. So you go to the one where you have more rings left, which is the other side, and I take the biggest angle piece, which would be the most outward piece, because you're going to work from the outside in and alternating sides. So you start on one side, go to the outer one on the other. Then you go to the outer one on the other side, and back and forth until you get them all done. So now I'll take this outer one, which is the biggest point, like that. And you have to make sure when you get the point that you go over the top of all the other rings. So let me see if I can do this where you can maybe see it. You go over the top of all the rings, and then you can kind of, I don't know how to describe it, but you can go and make this ring match up with the others. So now I've got the 2 foundation bands and each of the outer, the little triangle, or the little pointy pieces. So the last one I did was on this side. So now I go back to this side. Even though I've got 2 and 2, now I need to go back to the other side. That's just the way these things work when you're made. I rotate it around until I get this point inside of here and on top of the other rings, and flip it up to where it mates up with the other bands. And now I go to this side and I take the outer one and I rotate it around until it goes up in there, and I make sure it's on top of the other ring bands. Sometimes you may have to kind of, finagle it and do it up. Now I'm down to the last 2 bands. And so I'll go back to the other side and rotate it around. See, I'm turning this around till it gets in here and above the last ring band. Flip it up. And you'll see now I have one band left, one ring. How's it go? This way. And what I'll do is I'll take this and I'll go slowly around. And sometimes it gets a little stiff when you're the last ones or even just part way through. It may be hard to move them. So what you have to do is very carefully just let a little slack in these rings so you're not just holding them really stiff. And then you can kind of wiggle it around until you get the ring in the position you need. And that is how you put together a puzzle ring. Be patient with it. Keep trying. It's not exactly an easy thing. I've done this ring probably no less than 1,000 times. I used to travel every week. I could sit in the airplane. I got to where I knew what each band felt like. I can do this ring with my eyes closed now. But when I first got it, it would take me a long time to do it. So just keep doing it. Keep trying. Never force it. Be gentle with it, and it will go together. And then once you do that, when you go to shops, if they've got rings, every now and then I'll find one at a shop that they need done, and I'll just kind of work it for them real quick. And you can be your own little puzzle ring hero for the people you run into that have these and don't know how to do them. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget, like, subscribe. If you subscribe to me, I'm pretty much going to subscribe to you because YouTube has made it tough for us, to get any kind of monetization. So I'm just doing it for fun right now. But I'll follow you back or subscribe back. And if you want to get my updates, they're not very often, but you can hit the little bell, whatever you want to do. I'm just glad you came to see my ring video, and I'll keep doing things that I think are interesting and helpful, and hopefully you will be able to, I don't know, get a little benefit from it. Thanks a lot.